My name is Natan Brownstein, and this is the NCSY Alumni YouTube channel. When you're done listening to this great Dvar Torah, take a chance to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can listen to wonderful Divrei Torah in the future. One of the things that's amazing about the Jewish calendar is that what happens over the course of the year seems to line up with the Parshios of the year. For example, this past week we just had the holiday of Purim. One of the big themes in Purim is Jews giving to one another. We see that in giving to the poor, Matanos Lavionim. We see that in giving to each other, Mishloach Manos. And so too in this week's Parsha is about the Jews giving and donating of themselves to the materials of the Mishkan. This week's Parsha, the Pasuk tells us, Vayavo kol ish asher nisao libo, and every person whose heart inspired him came, B'chol asher nadva rucho, and anyone who felt generous, Oso heviu es trumas Hashem l'mlechas Ol HaMoed. Every person brought his gift, his offering, to the Ol HaMoed for the Mishkan. What was going on here? How did these donations work? Who was donating and why? The Das Zakenim Baalei Tosfos gives us a fascinating insight as to who was donating and what was going on. He says that the men were very reluctant to give their donations to the Mishkan, while the women were absolutely enthusiastic to do so. In fact, the men had to be almost coerced by the women in order to make sure that they donated everything that they had to build the Mishkan. He continues and says that this is fascinating because it's in stark contrast to what happened in the story of the golden calf. In the story of the golden calf, Aaron asked the Jewish people for gold to make the god that they wanted for themselves. The Medrash tells us that the men were very motivated to give up their gold, but the women did not want to, and just the opposite happened. The men had to coerce the women into donating their gold to the golden calf. Isn't this interesting? When it came to the Mishkan, a pursuit of holiness, the women were absolutely dedicated and donate and motivated to give their materials to the Mishkan, whereas in the case of the golden calf, when it was something that was terrible, something that was evil, they were very reluctant. Because of this contrast, and because of the incredible generousness of the women, they were given a special connection to the holiday of Rosh Chodesh. Now I want to ask a basic question. What is the connection between this generosity of the women and Rosh Chodesh? This starts with a story that we're very familiar with, but on the other hand may not have never understood the deeper meaning of. When the Jews were in Mitzrayim, it was obviously very hard, the slavery that they were in. And there were many outgrowths and effects of the slavery. And one of them is that the men did not want to continue to have children with their wives. They thought that because Paro had decreed on all the Jewish males to be thrown into the river, why should they even have children? After all, they were just going to be killed anyways. The women, on the other hand, realized that this was a very terrible thing. Why should all Jewish people, all Jewish children be punished and not be born just because the fact that Paro decreed against the Jewish boys? So the women utilized mirrors. They took the mirrors that they had out into the fields. They beautified themselves and looked into them to make sure they looked pretty for their husband, enticed their husbands, and then they were able to continue to have Jewish children and procreate so the Jewish people got bigger over the time that they were in Mitzrayim. Think about how incredible this was. In a time of such downtroddenness, in a time of such despair, the women had the audacity, the motivation to go out and take these mirrors and to beautify themselves in order to make sure that the Jewish people stayed alive. It was for this reason that Hashem said, I want to use these mirrors in my Mishkan. These mirrors represent such a preciousness to me that I want them to be a part of the place which encloses the Shekhinah. This is what Rosh Chodesh is all about. That the moon wanes and the moon waxes, but yet we, the Jewish people, are obligated to be strong and to rise above challenge and do what we need to do to give in the face of even what is hard. This was what the women did in Mitzrayim, and this is what the women did in the case of the Mishkan. Even Mitzrayim, when things were so low, they had the motivation to give. Even though there was a Mishkan, and the Jewish people, because they sinned the golden calf, according to Rashi, now had to be in a Mishkan and couldn't have the Shekhinah within them, the women were motivated, no, even though this might have been not what we wanted initially, now let's motivate ourselves to give and be energized to donate to the Mishkan. We have learned from the women of Mitzrayim and the women of the Mishkan to be able to internalize the message of the mirrors. The most important thing to Hashem is a Jew, not only in times of great joy, but also in times of despair and when things seem down, to be able to channel the inner strength to give and to rise above the challenge. I want to wish you guys all a Shabbat Shalom, and again, take a moment to subscribe to the NCSY Alumni YouTube channel. Take care.